I am the bread of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am living water. You don't say those things if you're not professing that you are the Messiah. So they know what he's saying. They just want to hear it come out in a certain way so that they can accuse him, right? But Jesus says to them, I've already told you. Um, they had heard his teaching. Like I said, they'd heard that he is bread of life. They've heard that he is water of life, the light of life. But they hadn't believed it. Not only had they seen his words, they had seen his deeds. And Jesus performed those miracles so that his sheep might hear his voice, so that they might wake up to the call and recognize that he is the Messiah and that there is life there. So I want to give you a couple warnings this morning, just a couple of different sheep that we're going to talk about this morning. And when I was on the sheep farm, I noticed there are several different types of sheep. They're not all the same. Some are smarter than others. I don't think I'm one of those. Some have prettier coats than others. Some pay better attention. There are some sheep that will let the shepherd know if there's danger coming to other sheep. But here's the sheep I want to talk to you about this morning, the deaf sheep. The deaf sheep. Listen to this, and you may want to write this down. Even the most attentive sheep can fall deaf to the voice of the shepherd if they are immersed in an ocean of noise. You hear what I said?
Yes.
Even the most attentive sheep can fall deaf to the voice of the shepherd if they are immersed in an ocean of noise. Are you immersed in an ocean of noise? I am. I am.
Yeah.
Right? We talked on Saturday. You think it's any coincidence that the back of your Apple phone has an apple with a bite taken out of it?
No.
I don't know now. Everything is competing with the sound of the shepherd's voice. You know, again, we talked just today about the things that will steal from the fold. And a lot of it is deafness. And maybe you've experienced this. I don't know how many of you, how long you have been here. Maybe you had children here. Maybe you brought children with you here to the United States. Our children are all facing the same thing. When they have stuff in their hands, and I'm not just talking about electronics, I just mean stuff. I really think that the enemy doesn't have to work too hard here in the United States because there's so much already just pulling away from them. Pulling them away from the shepherd. I talked with Pastor this morning about it as well, that our children are under attack from the enemy. And we want to give to them things that we think that will make them happy. We want them to be like other children. We want them to have because we didn't have maybe. Or we want them to have just because it feels good to give to our children. But if we're giving them things that are destroying them and consuming their lives, is it not like the father who gives the snake? Right? Are you in an ocean of noise, is what I'm asking you. Because if you are in an ocean of noise, then you will not hear the sound of the shepherd's voice. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I want you to think about the things that maybe distract you. Think about those things that are in your life that render you deaf to the sound of his voice. Because you know them. It won't take you long to think of them, will it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's reading too much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's electronics, media. Maybe it's the pursuit of wanting to be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
My brother talked about that earlier this weekend too. Maybe you want to be somebody so badly that all you can hear in your mind is the sound of your own voice saying, "Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can be somebody. You can get what you want." Is that not what Adam and Eve heard? Yeah, the sound of the shepherd's voice had been drowned out by the enemy telling them, you can get whatever you want. You can be whatever you want to be. So I want to encourage you this morning to not be a deaf sheep.
Oh yeah. Amen.
Pay attention. Pay attention and listen closely. I have two sons. I have a 3-year-old son. I have a 1-year-old son. And please pray for my 1-year-old right now. He's got rashes and sick. His name is August. We've been praying for him all weekend. But my 3-year-old, he's brilliant. His name is Judah, which means praise. Yeah? He talks to me And the way that he talks to me, sometimes I forget that he's only 3. But I was taking him on a walk. I have a dog. I was taking the dog on a walk just before I came. And my son has a little tricycle, one with the big wheels on the front that have the big plastic knobs on it. It was given to him as a gift from one of his grandparents. And we were riding down the sidewalk. And I've noticed that it's kind of loud. This little motorcycle that he drives, it's kind of loud. And he wants to drive ahead of me. And that's okay. I wanted to feel freedom to go. And I wanted to know, I'll protect you, right? If something comes, Daddy's got you. Mm-hmm. So I let him go ahead a little bit. But he's fast, and I'm not. So I'm walking behind him before we came up here, and he gets so far ahead at one point that I shout his name, Judah. Judah! Stop! Because I'm afraid of what might happen. He continues to go too far ahead. I hear a van coming around the corner of our street. At the top of our street, this white van comes flying around the corner. And I see what my son's about to do. Someone has parked their car across the sidewalk. So my son, when he gets to the edge of where the car is, he wants to go into the road and then back up onto the sidewalk to go around it. And I can see the danger that's coming, right? Mm-hmm. I can see there's this person who's not paying attention, and here's my son who's not paying attention, and he's driving right into danger. So I shout his voice and I said, Judah, stop! And he won't stop. So again, my heart is pounding and I'm running. And the dog, I'm dragging the dog because I'm going to get to my son before something happens to him. Yeah. So I run to the edge of where he is, but I didn't make it in time. He cut into the road. But the car just whizzed past. But in my heart, I'm sick. Yeah. I'm thinking in my mind, what could have happened to my son? Yeah. What do I tell my wife when I let something like that happen to my son? So I'm angry. I'm angry at myself. In the moment like that, I'm kind of angry at my son, right? So why didn't you listen? Pulled his motorcycle around and I looked him in the face, and my face must have been red and I must have been sweaty from running. And I said to him, I said, Judah, son, why don't you listen to me, baby? And he says, with an innocent voice, I didn't hear you. And then it dawned on me, deaf sheep. You understand? He was so consumed with riding his motorcycle, and the noise of riding it was so loud, he could not hear the sound of me screaming, even if it's to protect him from danger, to pull him back from harm, to save his life. He wouldn't stop. He wouldn't put on the brakes, and I'm screaming as a father. I'm calling out his name, saying, Judah, stop, please. And finally, when I get to him, he goes, Daddy, I couldn't hear you. It was too loud. And of course, in that moment, I'm convicted because I'm angry. But I knew that that's the deaf sheep. How many of you are riding on that little motorcycle of life, right? You're riding fast and the noise is loud and you're going and you're so drunk on life, you can't hear the sound of the Father's voice. Jesus talks about that. He talks about being so drunk on life, on doing, so intoxicated by the noise around us that we don't even hear his voice. You think about it like that, drunk on life. You know people like that. Maybe you are that person. You're so drunk on ambition, selfish gain, lust, greed, anger, bitterness, all these things that we are drunk on. Just the pursuit of selfishness. That we don't hear the sound of the Father's voice when he's screaming it.
Oh, God forbid.
And the truth is, more often than not, he doesn't even scream it. How does he speak? Still small voice. Yes. He speaks to us in the whisper. Yes. When we are in so much noise, when the world around us is so loud that we couldn't hear a scream, how are we going to hear a still small voice? You need to get alone and cut out those things in your life that are distracting you. Yes. And that's an act of intentionality. In other words, you have to be actively doing that, right? Yes. Jesus warns his disciples, but before I read what Jesus says, I want to read a quote to you because I found this quote in preparation. And it burned me. It stuck me when I heard this quote. I want you to hear this. We, me and you, we are like modern day Samsons, seduced and lulled to sleep by the devilish schemes of Delilah, we lose our power to combat the enemy's onslaught. Now listen to this part. This is where it'll get you. Of course, we really haven't lost our power, but by compromising with the spirit of this world, much of the church has willfully and effectively taken off its armor of God, laid down our weapons because it makes us more comfortable to sleep through the noise of the sin in our lives.
Oh, wow. God forbid.
Do you hear that? The church, a lot of the church, that's you and me. We're willfully wanting to. We're taking off the armor of God and we're laying it on the ground and we're laying down the sword because it makes it more comfortable to sleep. We don't want to be asleep. Wake up, church.
Yes.
Wake up, church. This is what Jesus says in Luke chapter 21, verse 34, okay? You don't have to turn there. I'll just read it to you. He says this, "Be on guard so that your minds are not dulled from carousing, from drunkenness and worries of life. Or that day will come on you unexpectedly like a trap. For it will come on all who live on the face of the whole earth." He's talking about the day of the Lord. He says, "But be alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and to stand before the Son of Man." He's telling his disciples to stay alert, to heed his call. And you know what it means to heed a call? It means to follow in obedience. It doesn't just mean that you hear it. We shared a little story this weekend, and we've got more people, and I want to share it again. There's a guy who writes Bible studies, and he made this video, and he talks about his daughter. His name is Francis Chan, maybe you know him. He talks about his daughter, and he says, if my daughter comes to me, and I say, "Honey, go clean your room," and she comes back, and she says, "Daddy, I thought about what you said. You said, go clean my room." And I like that. But she doesn't go clean her room, then she hasn't been obedient at all. He says if she comes back and she says, "Daddy, I memorized what you said. You said go clean my room. I've got it memorized. I'll forever know how to clean my room." Or I'll know what it says about cleaning a room, but then she doesn't clean the room, then she's failed. She's not been obedient. And then finally, he says that if my daughter even comes to me and she goes, "Daddy, I gathered with a bunch of my friends, and we talked about how it would look, what it would look like." Thank you, friend. What it would look like if we clean our rooms. If I went and clean our rooms, "Daddy, we talked about that." And I think it would be a good thing if we did it, but then they don't do it. They just sit around and talk about it, smile about it. That's disobedience, right? Heeding his call, listening to the sound of his voice, heeding it means that you're following in obedience. Listen to the next part. It says, "But be alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and to stand before the Son of God." Heed the call, watch for him expectantly, and pray for him, independence upon him. Don't be deaf to the sound of the shepherd's voice. Remain alert. And that's all I'll say about that, okay? The second warning is to the stubborn sheep. Maybe you're the stubborn sheep. Maybe. Maybe we hear the sound of the shepherd's voice, but we don't come, right? We hear him say, that's this child that we're talking about, the child that goes, "Daddy, I heard you. I hear you. I can feel you moving in my life, God. And I want to be obedient to you, but I want to be obedient to you with my finances. I want to be a good steward of what you've given me because I realize that I should hold it all with an open hand. It's yours," right? We talked about Psalm 50. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Jacob doesn't own the cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills.
Amen.
The Lord is hammering me out in regards to that right now. Because we want to grab so tightly because we think that there's security inside of our own finances, right? But God wants us to let it go. He wants us to be obedient in regards to that. Maybe it's with your children. Maybe it's with that addiction that you're holding on to. Because he's told you, let it go. Listen to the sound of my voice. Be obedient. Heed my call. Flee from wickedness. Run. run to me.
Oh, yeah.
But you go,